Of the Raymore City Council regular meeting to order. Could I please have the roll call?
Councilmember Abdelgawad.
Here.
Councilmember Barber.
Present.
Councilmember Burke.
Present.
Councilmember Holman.
Present.
Councilmember Hubach.
Present.
Councilmember Kellogg. Councilmember Moorhead.
Present.
Mayor Turnbow.
Present. Could you all please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Tonight it is my honor to provide a proclamation for Constitution Week. Tonight I have with us two chapters. We have with us members of the Prairie Chapter of the Daughters of the American Revolution, Miss Betty Taylor and Miss Nancy Morris. And for the Mary Sibley Chapter of the Daughters of the American Revolution, we have Denise Miller. If you'd all please come forward. I do have two separate proclamations, but they're virtually identical, so I'll probably just read one out loud here, if I could. Whereas the Constitution of the United States of America, the guardian of our liberties, embodies the principles of limited government in a republic dedicated to rule by law, and whereas September 17, 2016 marks the 229th anniversary of the framing of the Constitution of the United States of America by the Constitutional Convention, and whereas it is fitting and proper to accord official recognition to this magnificent document and the anniversary of its creation and to the patriotic celebrations which will commemorate it, and whereas Public Law 915 guarantees the issuing of a proclamation each year by the President of the United States of America designating September 17 through 23 as Constitution Week. Now therefore I, Christopher P. Turnbow, Mayor of the City of Raymore, do hereby proclaim the week of September 17th through the 23rd, 2016 as Constitution Week in the City of Raymore, Missouri, and ask our citizens to reaffirm the ideals of the framers of the Constitution that they had in 1787 by vigilantly protecting the freedoms guaranteed to us through this guardian of our liberties, in witness whereof I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the City of Raymore to be affixed this 12th day of September, 2016. Thank you very much.
That's okay. That's okay.
Get you well, so you can, but if we could, why don't we individually, you and I first, we'll get a picture taken here together. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Sure, would one of you like to say something? Not really? Denise, do you want to? Sure. Go right ahead. Set that right there.
On behalf of the Mary Sibley Chapter of the DAR in Harrisonville, I would like to thank the mayor and the City of Raymore for this proclamation.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Sure.
And if I could have Tyler George, please step forward. Tyler? I asked Tyler to come up tonight. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to make it to his Eagle Scout presentation or his Court of Honor. And in my stead, Mayor Pro Tem, Mr. Moorhead, presented that proclamation at the time. And tonight, what I would like to do to recognize you for the hard work that you've done. I understand you had a wood duck house project over at James A. Reed Wildlife that you did, built 12 homes over there for the wood ducks. And it's a big project, I know. and one that I'm sure they'll take advantage of for years to come. And thank you. We appreciate you representing the city of Raymore. Thank you, Tyler. Just toss it. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is personal appearances. We have none. And now we'll move on to staff reports. Mr. Fearborn?
Thank you, Your Honor. I would ask Mr. Cataret to make a report for community development.
Thank you, sir. A couple of items this evening. First, I want to talk about the building activity. It remains very active overall for new construction. August, we had 18 new single-family home permits issued. And so that brings us up to a total of 138, which matched what we had all of last year. So we're clearly on an upward trend. We still have 4 months remaining in this year. So exciting as far as new home construction in Raymore. And I think overall, we have a total of 238 homes under construction now, which just 2 years ago, we had under 100 at the same time of the year. So you can see the activity is pretty rampant with a lot more being planned. So we're excited about that. The Planning Commission will next meet on September 20th. They're going to have a public hearing for conditional use permit for our proposed recreation activity center at Recreation Park. So again, any new public building that's constructed in the city requires this public hearing process. And here it will enable the residents of Shadowwood and Skyview estates to be able to have some input on the location and the overall plan for the project there. That will then, of course, come before the City Council late in September. And then lastly, I'm proud to announce that Christian Neal has started as our code enforcement officer. Today was his first day, so excited to have him on board, and hopefully we can do some catch up on our code enforcement activity that kind of fell behind a little bit with the loss of our previous inspector. So we're glad to have him on board. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Mr. Fearborn, anything else?
Thank you, Mr. Cataret. I would ask Mr. Mustine to make a report for Parks and Recreation.
Thank you, sir. Members of the council. First tonight, I would like to remind everybody that the inaugural season of the Honor Bricks, the deadline for that to have your order placed with Parks and Rec is September 23rd. So sooner we can get that in, we can gauge how many bricks to order and get that done. And we hope to unveil that at the Veterans Day ceremony at Hannah Station this November. I'd like to announce that our athletic coordinator, Michael Hedrick, has started on September 1st, so he is getting his feet wet and doing a fantastic job. We're pleased to have him. Our fall sports all have had their coaches' meetings, practices. Raymore United has already gone through 2 weeks of games for the teams in that division. The rest of the sports just are staggering kickoff to their seasons over the next couple weeks. So we are getting into the heavy part of our fall season. And RFQ for the Hawk Ridge Park design and engineering portion of the bond projects and CIP projects scheduled for Hawk Ridge. That should go out later this week, so we should be interviewing firms to help us engineer and design those projects that have been identified. Currently, we are waiting for the announcement of the Recreation Trails Program grant that we applied for in April for Memorial Park, the Loop Trail and portions of the Arboretum at Memorial Park. I spoke with the State Department last week, and they stated we should have an announcement or a letter, hopefully positive answer within the next couple weeks. So we're looking forward to seeing that. And finally, as part of our Monarch Mayor Pledge, we held our native plant sale this past Saturday at Hannah Station, and I went up and gave my $27 worth for trees and flowers, and there were several other people there as well. So with that, I'll answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Mustine. Just to, I'm sorry. I'm sure she's back there looking at me. I would ask Chief Zimmerman to make a report for PD emergency.
Thank you, Mr. Fearborn. This is the last regular council meeting before the Fall Festival, so I thought it would be a good opportunity to share some information with you all about the Community Against Crime event. You've got the schedule there at each one of your places of the things that we're going to be hosting on the 24th. But I did want to give a special shout out to Officer Lance Goddard, who is our school youth community outreach officer. So in addition to all of his other duties, working in the schools and working with the school district, this is a big part of his job, planning this event, getting all of these outside agencies to participate with us in this event. As you know, several years ago, we made the decision that we would change our National Night Out Against Crime from the first week in August, which is absolutely 1,000 degrees every time we try to have an event like that. So we partnered with the Fall Festival Committee because we feel like the draw is much better. A lot more people come to the event. The weather is much more favorable, and we've had a really good turnout in the past several years doing it that way, and getting those agencies that you see represented there to partner with us to bring in those types of things that their agencies have, from Lee Summit Underwater Rescue, the Kansas City Bomb Squad, Bomb Robot. We have the tactical teams come in, command post buses, but a number of federal agencies, the ATF, and others, bringing in some of the things that represent their agencies. But in addition to that, the postal inspectors to talk about fraud, against the elderly and identity theft and those types of things. So it promises to be a good event this year, and I hope that you will notice one of the things near and dear to my heart on the bottom of the first page, the Pies for Paws auction. We actually, hopefully it's our same auctioneer that has come back the last 3 years to auction off those pies. And all the money, the pies are donated to us by local vendors, folks like Target and Price Chopper and places like that, Sam's Club, in order for us to use all of the funds that are raised from the auction to go to the animal shelter. So please come out and bid a ridiculous amount of money on a pie, and all of that will go to the shelter. So does anybody have any questions about the event? We're pretty excited about
Pretty
it.
robust schedule there.
It is a
Actually,
very
there's
robust schedule.
quite a few demonstrations going there. That's awesome.
Yeah, the Mosar folks are coming in, and they, Chris Tyndall, who you all remember from South Metro Fire, was one of the folks who had done the demonstration in the past. And so in honor of him, in memory of him, the Mosar team is coming out, and they're going to do some demonstrations with the dogs, which is always a lot of fun for the kids.
Okay. Anybody have anything? Chief, I was going to ask, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Is this schedule going to be published somewhere so people can see, or is it already?
I believe it already went out. The Fall Festival Committee, I believe, put all of
Part
this
of the
in their
festival committee.
flyer,
Awesome.
I believe.
Very good. Thank you.
And my question was going to be, since our last council meeting, you did have your community conversation. Did you want to give the group an update on how that went or anything? I have received nothing but kudos from people that attended about how well it was received and how well the police department responded to the questions that were posed during the group discussions. And maybe you want to expand upon the community conversation and maybe why you had it and what came out of it?
It was a great conversation. Much like other neighborhood associations that we partner with, and anytime a group in the community is interested in talking to the police department about why we do what we do, and so much of that, and we always encourage people, come and ride along with us, or take part in our Citizens Academy, of course, which we did with that group as well. Took place over at the First Baptist Church. We had a really good turnout with the group, but yeah, there were lots of questions that sort of spanned everything from fireworks to police calls for service, and how we respond to calls. But we are looking forward to continuing that conversation with all members of the community. I mean, obviously, anyone and everyone is welcome to come and talk to us about why we do what we do. But it was a great group and lots of great questions, lots of great conversation. As a matter of fact, the meeting after the meeting probably was as good as the meeting because, people got a chance to stand around and visit and get to know each other and hopefully continue that on.
Well, thank you for doing that, Chief. I think that was a great effort on the part of the police department to reach out. I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Anything else? Thanks, Chief.
Thanks.
Chief Dearborn?
Thank you, sir. Just want to remind the council and give you an update on next week's agenda for the work session. There's it's a robust agenda, to say the least. We will be presenting to the council. We have completed step 1 that was authorized by the council relative to the Raymore Gateway area at 58 Highway in Kentucky. And Mr. Bushek will be here, and Mr. Tapp will be following up on the data that we found and possible steps for how the council could move forward to step 2 if you so choose. We will also be, as a part of that, one of the economic development tools that we've never really discussed with the council or fleshed out with the council is Chapter 100 bonds. So we thought it would be a good idea to educate you all, since some of our future economic development areas may require, or it may be more advantageous to the city to offer those as an economic development incentive. And of course, it is one of the tools in our toolbox that we offer. So just so you all would be briefed up in the future on that. We will be kind of having just a real quick meet and greet with Carrie Reisendorf from Ogletree. She is our legal representative for HR issues that the council chose a couple of months back. We will be presenting to the council. We have been approached by the HOA for Herald Estates regarding their sewer lift station. And as we have done in some other areas, the possibility of the city taking that over. And we want to have a brief discussion with the council about that as well, and some alternatives that are going to be available to you if you would like to take them. And then finally, of course, as with every work session and council meeting, we will be have an agenda item for budget 2017. That concludes staff reports, sir.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Yes, Mr. Holman.
Just a declaration of intent, and I certainly will at the time, but at the time the city council hears the item on the lift station at Herald Estates, my intent would be to recuse myself from the council, as I am a member of the Homeowners Association and live there. And while not specifically outlined at this time, there is a possibility of a future pecuniary interest, so I would be recusing myself from any discussions on that topic.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? Thank you, sir. Next item on our agenda is committee reports. Since our last meeting, the Charter Review Commission did meet for the first time. Mr. Moorhead on our council was selected as the chairperson of that group. Mr. Moorhead, would you like to provide a report?
Since acting as a citizen, I'll go ahead and step down here. Well, we did have our inaugural meeting. Obviously, you pointed out that I was appointed presiding commissioner. We will be taking somewhat of an aggressive approach of diving into this. So we will be meeting twice a month. Our first meeting will be next Tuesday on the 20th. The general scope on the agenda is to have a little bit of a history of the charter for the members, kind of a legal primer to explain the role of a charter, ordinances, resolutions, et cetera. So the commissioners are fully up to speed on how we'll be evaluating that and some of the scope of analysis that we'll be doing. And that's really kind of where we started. That's all.
Thank you. Any questions? Thank you, sir. Thank you. The next item on our agenda is the consent agenda. Under the consent agenda, we have 3 items tonight to consider. One is the city council minutes from the August 22nd meeting. Item B is the Foxwood Village Shops Community Improvement District budget. And item C is the public improvements for Edgewater 5th final acceptance. Is there a motion to dispose of the consent agenda?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve the consent agenda to include items A, B, and C.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded to approve the consent agenda, including items A, B, and C. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Motion passes unanimously, 6-0, I guess 6-0, absent. I don't know. We'll go with the 6-0. How's that? We're a little short-handed tonight. And now is unfinished business. Could I please have the second reading of Bill 3174 by title only?
The second reading of Bill 3174 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, authorizing the permanent closure and removal of the access drive from Foxwood Drive, Missouri 58 Highway, to 1918 West Foxwood Drive, formerly occupied by Ryan's Restaurant.
Is there a motion to dispose of Bill 3174?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Bill 3174 regarding the permanent closure and removal of access drive for 1918 West Foxwood Drive.
Second.
Thank you. Motion been made and seconded to approve the second reading of Bill 3174. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion passes 6-0. Thank you. Next item, could I please have the second reading of Bill 3202 by title only?
The second reading of Bill 3202 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with Independent Salt Company for delivery of bulk road salt.
Thank you. Is there a motion to dispose of Bill 3202?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Bill 3202, an award of contract regarding bulk road salt.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded to approve Bill 3202. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion passes 6-0. Thank you. Could I please have the second reading of Bill 3203 by title only?
Second reading of Bill 3203 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with J.M. Fahey Construction Company for the 58 Highway Overlay Project, City Project Number 16-245-201, in the amount of $1,400,513.60, and authorizing the city manager to approve change orders within established budget constraints.
Is there a motion to dispose of Bill 3203?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Bill 3203, an award of contract regarding the 58 Highway Overlay.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded to approve the second reading of Bill 3203. Any discussion? Ms. Abdul, go ahead.
Thank you. I just have a quick question for staff, if that's okay. I was wondering, do we have a timeline for this? That's a question that's come up from a few people.
Work is scheduled to start on the 19th. I think there are some warning signs out that have been posted on the project limits. Initially, the contractor will be removing curb and doing the concrete work. Overall timing, probably the end of November.
Anything else?
Just to follow up. So is the work going to happen in kind of sections or chunks, or is it going to be one lane at a time? People are a little, that's the main travel, the way people travel, they're nervous about how traffic's
Typically,
gonna
the way
get
they did it the last time is they milled everything off, and then they did lane closures. So there will be a period of time when there will be single lane travel, and we'll have advanced warning up and traffic control and those type of things.
And we also intend to be doing very, very regular, frequent updates on the website. There'll be a point on the website just for this project, just like all of our bond projects. They'll be able to go there and get real-time information on what's happening.
Anything else? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion passes 6-0. Thank you. Could I please have the second reading of Bill 3204 by title only?
The second reading of Bill 3204 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, authorizing an amendment to the fiscal year 2016 capital budget.
Thank you. Is there a motion to dispose of Bill 3204?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Bill 3204 for a budget amendment for the 58 highway overlay.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the second reading of Bill 3204. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion passes 6-0. Thank you. Could I please have the second reading of Bill 3201 by title only?
Second reading of Bill 3201 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with Bright Construction LLC for the citywide median beautification project, city project number 16-244-201, in the amount of $75,650, and authorizing the city manager to approve change orders within established budget constraints.
Thank you. Is there a motion to dispose of Bill 3201?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Bill 3201 for an award of contract for the citywide median beautification.
Motion been made and seconded to approve Bill 3201. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion passes 6-0. Thank you. Now we're under new business. Could I please have the first reading, or I guess it is the reading of Resolution 16-37?
The reading of Resolution 16-37, a resolution of the City of Raymore, Missouri, amending the schedule of fees.
Staff?
Thank you, sir. I would ask Ms. Watson to make the staff report.
Thank you, sir. Staff has completed an annual review of the current schedule of fees and prepared an amendment to address a couple of the fees that have been added or amended to better address existing programs, as well as including the excise tax that was recommended to be increased in July by the License Tax Review Committee by the Construction Cost Index. A resolution has been prepared for your consideration.
Okay. Any questions? Okay, thank you. Anything else, Mr. Fearborn?
That concludes staff report, sir.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a motion to dispose of Resolution 16-37?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we adopt Resolution 16-37 for amendments to our schedule of fees.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded to approve Resolution 16-37. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion passes 6-0. Thank you. Next item is, could I please have the first reading of Bill 3205 by title only?
The first reading of Bill 3205 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, approving and authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract to purchase property located at 108 West Olive Street in the amount of $65,000.
Is there a staff report?
Thank you, sir. I would ask Mr. Carteret to make a staff report.
Thank you, sir. Back in 2015, staff commenced discussions with Paul and Sarah Elmore concerning the purchase of property they own at 108 West Olive Street. This property is located, it's the southwest corner of South Adams Street and West Olive Street. It's the small home that's located immediately adjacent to the TB Hannah Station, where the farmers market is held under that facility. We've been interested in purchasing this property for some time. Purchase of the property would then conclude the overall purchase of all the property, that entire block. Earlier this year, we did purchase the home from the First Baptist Church, and we're currently in the process of deconstruction of that property. So gaining this additional 0.41 acres would allow the city to own the entire city block area. The real estate contract includes a purchase price of $65,000. After closing on the property, it'd be the intention of the city to have the structure renovated for use as restroom facilities for the park area, as well as the property, the acreage of the property could be utilized for the spray park and the proposed synthetic ice rink. So it gives us the land area that we need for those additional amenities for the overall park. Purchase of the park would be done by utilizing the Park Fee and Lieu Fund. It would be purchased for future use as a park site. The fund has a balance of $60,382. So the capital improvement fund would be utilized to pay the balance of the purchase for this property. We would anticipate, with council approval of this contract, closing on the property the beginning of October. So city staff does request approval of this real estate sales contract.
And I also understand that some of the aesthetics to the building are also to be, kind of bring it back to its original use as a post office. Is that correct?
That's correct. The exterior of the building, we will try to bring it back to its former luster when the building was originally constructed, as close as we possibly can. The interior of the building is set up with the infrastructure needed to have the restroom facilities, so it's a good reuse of that existing building.
Okay. All right, thank you. Anything else of staff? Thank you. Anything else?
I couldn't even add to that,
I
sir.
know. There you go. Hey, you got to have a good-looking bathroom if you're going to have a building out there. That's pretty funny. There you go. Okay, if there's no further discussion, is there a motion to dispose of Bill 32, the first reading of Bill 3205?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Bill 3205 for a contract for real estate purchase.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the first reading of Bill 3205. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion passes 6-0. Thank you. Could I please have the first reading of Bill 3206 by title only?
The first reading of Bill 3206 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, amending the fiscal year 2016 capital budget.
Staff report.
Thank you, sir. I would call on Mr. Catterett.
Thank you. The previous bill was for the purchase of the property at 108 West Olive Street. Bill 3206 is a request to amend the fiscal year 2016 capital budget. So as I previously indicated, the Park Fee and Lieu Fund would be utilized for the bulk of the purchase, so $60,382 from that fund. And the remaining amount, $4,618, would come from the Capital Improvement Sales Tax Fund. So that would be the total purchase price of $65,000 for the property. That concludes staff report.
Any questions?
With one exception, sir.
Yes, sir.
Just to alert the council, the park board has voted in the affirmative to use the Park Fee and Lieu funds for this particular project.
Thank you. Any other questions? Is there a motion to dispose of the first reading of 3206?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Bill 3206 for a budget amendment regarding the purchase of 108 West Olive Street.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the first reading of Bill 3206. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. 6-0. Could I please have the first reading of Bill 3195 by title only?
The first reading of Bill 3195 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with McGuire Iron, Inc. for the Foxwood Water Tower Project, city project number 16217-201, in the amount of $484,683, and authorizing the city manager to approve change orders within established budget constraints.
Thank you. Is there a staff report?
Thank you, sir. I would ask Mr. Kraft to make a staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Fearborn, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. This project involves making some repairs to the and other renovations to the Foxwood Springs Water Tower that's located on the Foxwood Springs property. It was included in the capital budget in the amount of $400,000, which included design and construction. We did, there is a significant cost increase involved with this project. It's in particularly related to Missouri DNR environmental regulations that were passed in 2014, specifically dealing with paint removal on outdoor structures. These regulations require that no dust from the paint removal operations leave the site. So in order to comply with that, it's necessary, and I included a picture in the staff report, to fully contain the water tower with a curtain before they start the paint removal process. we have an accompanying budget amendment to cover those costs. Staff has checked the references of McGuire Iron and does recommend award of the contract to them.
Okay. Any questions? That did?
That concludes staff reports, sir.
Okay. Is there a motion to dispose of the first reading of Bill 3195?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Bill 3195 for an award of contract for the Foxwood Water Tower project.
Second.
Motion's been made and a second to approve Bill 3195. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion? Motion passes 6-0. Thank you. Could I please have the first reading of Bill 3194 by title only?
First reading of Bill 3194 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, amending the fiscal year 2016 capital budget.
Thank you. Is there a staff report?
Thank you, sir. I'm remiss. I should have added for the first, Mike will be presenting to the folks at Foxwood Springs relative to this particular project. They obviously have some concerns about what's going to be going on in their backyards there, so he's been invited up to speak on Foxwood Springs TV about it. Mike, when is that scheduled for? Do you remember?
I talked with Mr. Waite and told him once we had a contractor, probably closer to the project starting. This project will take place in the spring, so when we get closer to the project starting, I will coordinate that with him.
Thanks, Mike. And staff report? Thank you.
Thank you. As I mentioned in my previous presentation, we are requesting additional funds to cover the cost increase for this project. We're requesting a budget amendment in the amount of $150,000. That concludes staff report.
Okay. All right. Let's see. Is there a motion to dispose of Bill 3194?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Bill 3194 for a budget amendment for the Foxwood Water Tower project.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve Bill 3194. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion passes 6-0. Thank you. Our last item on the agenda is council discussion of the fiscal year 2017 budget. Mr. Feuerborn, you want to start us off?
Thank you, sir. And as this is the last agenda item, I would like to thank Ms. Johnson for filling in for our city clerks who are out this evening and being our acting city clerk. And thank you very much. As the council knows, we're going to be putting on each of your agendas, and this unusual item for the first time this year, even on your regular business item, in case you would have any discussion you would like to entertain. I could probably kick it off by letting you know there are 4 projects that are currently awaiting some sort of staff report for, and we're moving forward diligently with those. There is the trail lighting. There is the economic development program possibility of adding some funds to that particular program for some media items, and we're going to be scheduling a meeting with Councilmember Barber relative to that particular request. And then there is the youth community service program, which we're getting more and more excited about that one. We're getting some great information from a very large program that is run by Mark. They wouldn't actually be able to run the program for us as we had originally hoped, but they've given us some great models for us to create our own program. And we hope to have costs associated with each of those to you by Monday night. In addition, you may remember that Councilmember Kellogg had brought forward the possibility of CERT radios. Staff has some additional information for that. Councilmember Kellogg was going to be doing some exploration on his own. He has not yet gotten back with staff, but we'll be contacting him this week with the information that we've managed to garner relative to that particular program. Those are the 4 that we hope to be able to bring to the City Council next Monday night. In the meantime, this week, we will be getting the council members who are proposing them detailed information relative to them for further discussion next Monday night. That concludes staff report on this item, sir.
And just so they get their due recognition, isn't the community services program run by the Kansas City Crime Commission?
That is correct, sir.
Not Mark. You said Mark. That's okay.
Oh.
They're kind of like bodies. I mean,
Thank you,
I
sir.
can see how they
Yes.
get them mixed up. But just give them their due justice there. Okay, does anybody have any questions of staff at this time? Will we have another work session on the budget prior to?
Yes, sir. There will be the active work session agenda item next Monday night.
Okay.
Then the following week at the regular meeting of the council, there'll be an agenda item just like this one for any of your discussion.
Okay.
Then there will be the first work session of October, and then it will be time for the reading, and there's obviously plenty of time for discussion at the first reading, and then there is a work session in between for further discussion on the budget, and then there's the final reading at the second regular meeting of the council.
Okay.
And we will be posting up the budget, because the first reading of the budget is a public hearing. We will be posting that up. You'll see that next week. There's some odd statutes that require a lengthy posting period for that particular one.
Okay. Any questions of staff? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Next item on our agenda is public comments. If anyone from the audience would like to address the council, please identify yourself for the record and keep your comments to a maximum of 5 minutes. Seeing no one come forward, we'll close that part of the meeting and we'll move into mayor-council communication. Ms. Hubach, would you like to start us off tonight?
No comment.
Mr. Barber?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to clarify, 238 homes in various stages of construction right now. Is that correct?
That's
I read
correct,
that.
sir.
Seems like a big number. I would think if you got in your car and drove around and went to each one of those, that might take you a couple of days to do that. It's hard to fathom that in our little town of Raymore. But I think that's really good news, and I think that really shows something's going on here. Next, I want to welcome Mr. Deal, Mr. Hedrick, 2 new employees, is that correct? And there may be more, we may be missing some more, but just wanted to welcome them. And that's all I got to say tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Burke?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Wanted to give some thank you to the Public Works. I was driving on Dean last week and noticed how nice it was, and then today I drove on it again where the lines were. I don't know when the lines got put in, but looks great, nice and smooth, and that was noticed. And then, also, with the weather getting nicer, I want to remind everybody there's going to be a lot of people running in the streets, riding their bikes, on the sidewalks, whatever. So drivers, bikers, kids, whatever, everybody look out for each other and make sure we are careful. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Dogowan?
I don't have anything tonight, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Holman?
Thank you, sir. 2 items. Everybody's become familiar, I think, when we have students in the audience. I always try and recognize the students that were here. Those, if you actually stay, and sometimes these meetings last in excess of 2 hours, those that stay to the end get my version of Cliff Notes. So if you missed it or you slept during part of this exciting session, I'm going to cover it for you in about 60 seconds if I can do it. We approved the staff to go ahead and close the drive to the old Ryans off of 58. We purchased salt so that we can put it down on the streets this winter when it gets snowy and icy and we can drive. We approved the mill and overlay. We're going to redo the entire section 58 throughout town. We approved a little bit of moving of money in the budget so that the staff can pay for that and the mayor. We're going to do some median beautification, some plantings, some rain gardens, things like that. We changed the amount of fees on a few items. For example, when you rent one of the shelters and some different things like that, the fees need to be adjusted a little bit. We made the final authorization for some purchase of parkland over at what you may refer to as the Farmers Market or TB Hanna Station. And really, that was about it tonight. Did I miss anything, Derek? The water tower, that's right. We're going to paint, thank you. We're going to paint the water tower and fix it up and make it so that the state is happy and we're happy with it. And then we talked a little bit about our budget for next year. So thank you for staying for 45 minutes, by the way. This is a pretty short one. And the final thing that I have, sir, is I am very grateful and thankful that there are no Colin Kaepernick fans in the crowd. That's all I have.
Mr. Moorhead.
A couple things. I'll start with first acknowledging our Eagle Scout presentation earlier. While Mr. Burke was rather humble, he actually was the one that actually read the proclamation. Both Mr. Burke and I had the pleasure and opportunity of assisting and watching Mr. George grow through Scouts. So it was very personal for us to be able to attend to honor him. I do have to comment, though, I remember specifically his father talking about when he was really little, and as you could tell, that boy was never little. He can eat probably more than me right now. The other point I wish to point out, it brought back memories when I decided to not continue on in Scouts to go to Eagle Scout level. And I remember my father's disappointment, and I expressed to him the importance of that I was focusing more on school, sports, and girls. And so therefore I would have no time for the Eagle Scout activities, only to have Mr. George stand up with his father, who pointed out that not only was he a stellar student, he was a star football player and had a girlfriend and did the scouting activities and was able to achieve them. So he's not allowed to meet my father. But so that was a wonderful event, and I'm glad we can always honor the youth in our community like that. I also want to thank the city. I had the opportunity, I just literally drove in before the meeting. I attended the Missouri Municipal League's annual conference in St. Louis the last couple of days, where Miss Warner and Miss Hill are attending. I had lunch with them today, and they expressed that the city was probably in better hands with Miss Johnson here. So, and as I think some of us would agree, working with her on planning and zoning, it is fantastic to see you here. So thank you for showing up tonight. I also had an opportunity to sit down with our former city manager, Mr. Berlin, had a nice conversation. As well as, since I'm on the State Policy Committee, we had our meeting with that. I also had a chance to meet with a number of vendors, both current vendors for the city as well as prospective vendors. I do wish to point out I met with WCA, our trash company, and they so graciously looked at me and said, well, aren't all of you in Raymore so happy over the last couple months with our improved service? And I looked at them and just politely went, actually, no. And sitting there in an awkward silence, they said, well, apparently maybe we better work a little harder. I said, I think that's a wonderful suggestion. So hopefully that was communicated. In addition, I actually met with the Department of Natural Resources regarding 2 grant opportunities for the trail lighting. So I'll be meeting with Mr. Fearborn and discussing further some grant opportunities regarding that project. So it was a very productive event. The final thing I will, and this is more of a question for Mr. Cataret, I was reading one of our local newspapers. I know we're hitting that time of year with our hearings regarding sidewalk installation, and I believe I noticed that there were 10 advertised. Is that all we're down to?
That's correct. So this year we have just 10 properties, public hearings scheduled at your next meeting, 2 weeks.
And help me out here. 2 years ago, we had to meet on a Saturday. We had how many that time?
Well, yeah, the first year of the program, we had over 70 sidewalks that first hearing. So I tried to quill it down to a reasonable number.
Great news, great news. Thank you very much.
Okay, well, that comes to me. I just want to remind everybody, the Raymore Festival in the Parks coming up 22nd, 23rd, and 24th. Don't forget to participate in that. It's a great event every year. As you saw by the chief's timeline here, she's got a lot going on there. I think you'll find a lot of those things that are going to happen there very interesting. Also, we still have the Ward 1 council seat open. That closes when? This Friday?
September 22nd, sir.
September 22nd. So we've got a little bit of time. Those who live in Ward 1 and meet the qualifications to be a council member, if you're interested in serving with this body of great people up here, please look into that, and we'll be accepting those applications, like Mr. Fearborn said, up through the 22nd, just as a reminder. And as a final note, I was going to go into since I'm a veteran of the United States Navy, 36-year veteran of law enforcement, I was going to get into the disrespect shown during our national anthem, but you know what? I'm not going to get into it because I think it's glaringly obvious that in the last 30 years, our country has advanced quite a bit for us to have allowed that type of thing to happen the way it has. 30 years ago, it would have been, the consequences would have been much different than they are today. But God bless the Constitution Week that we just proclaimed to recognize, and that great document, and I will leave it at that at this time. And if there's nothing else, is there a motion to adjourn? Do we need to go into executive session?
We do, just for a few minutes,
Is there a motion to
sir.
adjourn to executive session?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I move that we enter into executive session to discuss litigation matters as authorized by RSMO 610.021 subsection 1.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded to move into executive session. Could I please have the roll call?
Councilmember Abdel-Gawad?
Yes.
Councilmember Burr?
Yes.
Councilmember Barber?
Yes.
Councilmember Holman?
Yes.
Councilmember Hubach?
Yes.
We have moved into executive session. Thank you.
Councilmember
Oh, I'm
Moorhead?
sorry, did I miss one?
Yes.
Mr. Moorhead?
I don't
He
count.
talked so
It's
much
all-
tonight, I forgot that he was still there. All right, thank you.